Here's the giant Stardew Valley character Iceberg going over all the known and lesser known information about the NPCs. I've been working on this for a couple months now, and, well, if you don't know what an iceberg is, it's basically a chart saying the most known stuff to the least known stuff. Otherwise, this video took me a while to make, so hopefully you enjoy it. Otherwise, let's get right into it. George and Evelyn. Overall, probably the most stable couple that exists. Though George's health concerns both Evelyn and the player as well as Harvey later on, and they do say they met at the Winter Festival. Otherwise just a neat bit, and they're also the sort of parents to Alex. Other than that, there's not much stuff other than they're a long-lasting couple, and they also have the stuff related to Clara. Jodie is a single parent. Jodie, of course, is the mother to both Sam and Vincent, who she had with her husband Kent. But again, Kent is an active soldier, therefore until year 2, they are a single mother. Now I get this kind of relates to her husband almost isolationist and forgottenness as a character, and I guess the player doesn't interact with her, which is almost odd. But again, she's more kept to herself, I guess, in Stardew Valley. Willie isn't a good fisher. I reference this because Willie actually isn't that great at fishing. Sure, he has a shop and he supplies rods, and he later has a boat to take you to Ginger Island, but has he ever caught the legend fish? No. Has he ever caught any of the legendary fish? The other ones? No. Does he have any fish on display, really? Not really. And does he give you any other thing than just some subtle tips? Not really. Therefore, I would say that Willie enjoys fishing more than he is actually good at it. Maru's sentient robot was a bad idea. Overall, giving robots sentience is a bad idea, but this encounter makes no sense, especially with the player being given the option to call or suggest that the robot should be used as a slave on the farm. Overall, this is probably one of the more cursed things Stardew Valley has to offer, especially the fact that the robot just beams off into space later. Robin's second marriage. Demetrius isn't Robin's first husband, and is overall an interesting character, but the whole thing that's interesting here is that she had her first marriage, and that person was really unknown who she had a son with, which is Sebastian. Caroline cheating on Pierre. This ties into the Wizard and the Abigail theory, where Abigail isn't actually Pierre's daughter, and the daughter of just Caroline and the Wizard, which would explain that. But overall, Caroline and Pierre don't actually have that great of a marriage, due to his stuck-up nature and losing all of their personal time together running the shop, plus his almost neglect towards his own family. Elliot's background. He's a calmer, almost different, and alternative character to most of the other NPCs, which make a lot of people speculate what exactly made him to get to this point, especially with his writing. He's most likely residing in Stardew for inspiration for his stories, maybe experiencing writer block and returning there. Otherwise, I kind of see him similar to the author character in the movie The Grand Budapest Hotel, who's only residing there just so he can gain enough information for a story. Harvey's failed career path. Harvey used to be a pilot, or, well, wants to be one at least, or at least some involvement in aviation, and again, I approve, that's pretty cool. But one of the things it says that prevents him is his eyesight and fear of heights. Now, one thing that got me wondering is if Stardew Valley isn't located near an airfield, why does he use a radio to direct aircraft? Or is there something secret going on that though he's not a pilot, that he's still working for the Ferngill military, using his shortwave radio to direct military activities? He also does leak the coordinates of where Stardew Valley is reportedly located, and looking these coordinates up on Google Maps puts you in a small town in Russia, which actually isn't named Pelican Town, sadly. Pierre is an awful husband. Pierre cares more about his shop than he does about his family life, and honestly, he isn't there for Caroline, probably resulting in Caroline cheating on him, just as I mentioned before, with the Wizard. He's not exactly a great person, and this kind of ties into how stingy his shop is. And of course, he also doesn't have a good relation with a lot of other people, including his own daughter. Clint being creepy. The way that Clint goes after Emily is honestly quite odd, as he gets to a stalking nature, which is portrayed to the character later in the game, especially with following her routes, doing the exact same stuff she does at any given time. Sebastian is, or was, neglected. Sebastian doesn't exactly have the best relationship with either of his parents, and this can probably be due to the connection with his real father over his stepfather, Demetrius. There is also that he resides in the basement and may have had his room shifted due to the addition of the science room in the house, resulting in resentment towards Maru for moving him out of his possibly safe space. Plus, he also doesn't have a great relationship with either of them or his sister. Emily and Haley suffering from abandonment. Emily and Haley's parents have been abroad for at least some point in time before the player arrives, but they don't exactly return like Kent does in year 2. And I guess this kind of plays a big impact in both the way Emily and Haley cope with this, especially with how Emily uses crystals and does needy work over the town, while Haley buys obscene amount of clothes, which is really weird on how she's actually able to fund this. Kent is trying to kill you. Kent is obviously suffering from some sort of PTSD from the war, especially with how he deals with his wife Jody while popping popcorn. But the thing is that he does try and kill you by mailing you mega bombs, which I guess isn't suspicious here by mailing actual explosives, but more or less, he states that he found it in his shed, and he thinks that you can put it to good use, but he doesn't actually own a shed, or actually state how he got the mega bomb into his shed, either stealing it from the military that he's in, which would be a really big issue, especially stealing military-grade explosives such as mega bombs. Leia's abusive relationship. If you reach 10 hearts with Leia, or her cutscene involves a picnic. Well, this picnic turns badly very quickly with the arrival of Kel, who pops out of a bush, who's already seemed to be abusive by the tone he takes towards the player, and the nature that he wants Leia back. And it's almost a sign that he's basically a mental abuser towards Leia. And at the end of that, you do have the option to punch them in the face, which kind of could be anticlimactic, but also kind of justification for what they have done, especially with if you don't punch them, Leia will do it for you. Morris isn't evil. Honestly, Morris is just a representative of Joja, and I get it, the player might have resentment towards them because their experiences at Joja, but compared to Pierre, Joja is honestly more reasonable for pricing and pay to their own workers, and isn't exactly stingy or biased towards people. I guess you could say a bad thing is that they will knock down the community center if you buy their membership, but honestly, their business is better than Pierre's, unless of course they demolish the school to build it. Why is Mr. Chi important? Mr. Chi plays a big late game influence, but why exactly? He simply owns a casino, right? Except that's not it, and he actually owns more, especially his secret bases on an island. So is he actually just controlling Stardew from the inside, and that's playing his biggest influence, rather than actually just being another person or NPC that the character can interact with in ways such as his quests and achievements? The thing is, a lot of this doesn't make sense without saying that Stardew Valley is actually just a simulation run by Mr. Chi. Pam shouldn't have their job, or they're the reason you died. This is in reference to how Pam, of course, is the town's drunk. She knows she isn't exactly stable enough for the position at hand, and again, the whole procession of driving and the lifestyle that she's in isn't exactly an amazing one. But how does this relate to you dying? Well, there's a whole theory about how Stardew Valley is actually just the afterlife, and you're arriving there dead in some sort of post-mortal fever dream. Now, again, how does it relate? Well, think about it. Drunk bus driver plus tire marks on the road equals possibility you died on the way to Stardew. Alex's real father. Alex's real father isn't actually specified, but it was reportedly very abusive and abandoned Alex at an early age, leading for Alex to develop traits that he believes he's not actually worth anything and will just end up like him. Some sort of abuser, at least. Lewis is deliberately ruining Stardew. This goes into how Lewis is deliberately ruining it for some inexplicable reason. Now, I do actually have some reasons, and I'm working on a giant Lewis lore video, but basically, Lewis is embezzling money from the town and deliberately refusing to do stuff to improve it, just so he can improve his own self-worth with stuff like his gold statue and playing big influence to other people in the region. He's also rumored to have a pass-out machine that allows him to control the town by telling them when they're going to go to sleep. Clara Molnar. This is a big one, and it honestly relates to suicide and Alex's awful childhood. Basically, it was either an illness or something to do with the insane amount of abuse from Alex's real father that Clara died from either having that illness or took her own life, leaving Alex to be abandoned by his father and having been raised by his grandparents. This isn't exactly like the most wholesome part of Stardew, but it's still there, and it can be referenced by notes seen on Evelyn's bedside table. Grandpa. It isn't exactly explained how he died, but he again willed his farm to you. Now the issue is that, first off, the farm isn't actually profitable. And how is he able to last so many years without improving the farm? Like, think about it. There are probably animals due to its locality to Marnie's, but there's no evidence of a past functioning farm, other than some land which is now extremely overgrown, a house, and a shattered greenhouse. Like, not even a silo or any other signs that there would be animals there. Leading for me to believe that the farm wasn't actually that profitable, leading to him leaving the farm very early on, and then eventually willing it to you, thinking that you would be able to put it to better use than he was. And again, his rating of the farm would then be kind of outweighed by this, but who knows? Jazz's parents. They both died, but how and why, and who even were they? Well, none of this is stated very well, and we know that Jazz was orphaned very early on, resulting in her having to be taken care of by Marnie. And I believe this is either due to disaster or what I suspect is the war that Kent is fighting in. Linus. Well, he's overall the most mysterious, and then also not mysterious character. Funny enough, I did a video on him that goes over 10 of his big theories, so go check the right upper corner at the end of the video. Otherwise, that is the big character lore iceberg. If you enjoyed this video, thanks for watching, consider subscribing. I make frequent content that's usually pretty in-depth on the lore side. Otherwise, hopefully you enjoyed it. If you have anything to send, just send it in the comments below. Otherwise, have a great day. This was the Penguin Corporation. Goodbye.